Hi, everyone. My name is Krista Yelich-Koth. I am an editor and an author, and welcome to my writing, editing, and publishing Q&A session. I run these sessions once a month at the end of the month, the last Sunday of the month at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. They usually run about an hour. And I also, as if you are watching live, I am on Twitch currently under Krista YK. Or if you're on my YouTube channel, CYK Author, you can watch these at a later date. I am very excited this month because I have a guest person star. This is internationally best-selling author Lorena ANGELL, and I am so happy. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Aw, thanks.
We're also friends, which is really great. But I met her. Oh, goodness gracious. years ago.
2015?
It's been
2015?
yeah.
Wow.
I read her book, her first book, which we actually have. This is what the first book in her series looks like. So she writes young adult fantasy and has a series called the Unaltered series. And the one in the picture, A Diamond in My Pocket, is the first book. And we're going to talk a little bit about her series as well, but I wanted to make sure you got to see it, and it is available everywhere in paperback, hardcover.
No hardcover.
No hardcover.
Yet.
Paperback, ebook, and audiobook.
Yes.
Okay, so, and at pretty much all retailers. And then you can find her at lorenaangel.com, which is pretty easy because that's her name. So, she knows what she's doing. So anyway, so she is the author of this young adult fantasy series. I read her first book in 2015. It came out in 2011.
2011.
I got a hold of it through, some kind of saw it free somewhere and decided to give it a shot. And I wrote a review about it, which I don't really write reviews much anymore, especially once I established myself as an author. I found that it has a little bit a different weight to it, I guess you could call it. But at the time, I was still doing that. And Lorena reached out to me to ask me about my review. I will say this right now.
Don't do that.
Don't do that. Not that what she did was wrong towards me. She was actually super friendly and had questions about my review because she wanted to make her book better, which also nobody does that either. Like, you get a response from somebody and you expect it to be scathing and just horrible.
Really new to it, and I was responding to.
But it's let people have their reviews. Let them say what they want and just let that be. That's their way of expressing however they felt about, your book. So just a helpful hint. But Lorena was fairly new as far as especially social media stuff and felt like she wanted to improve her book. And I had a few comments, critique stuff. I thought the book was really good, especially towards the ending. And so she asked me, can you tell me what I could do to make it better? And I was just blown away by that. Again, I've talked with a lot of authors, and they don't usually have an interest in improving their book once it's out. Not gonna lie. So we started a dialogue, and I kind of just told her my thoughts. And then a few weeks later, you were doing a talk.
A small gathering of authors, and I was invited to come and talk.
And you wanted to know what kind of questions they might ask because she knew that I had done talks like this before. And I was kind of I was floored. I had looked into your stuff. You were particularly popular, especially at the time. And I had no idea why you were talking to me. I'm not gonna lie. So it was kind of incredible to me to, connect with somebody who had already been in the business for 4 years, who I would say was fairly successful. And at the time, your books were being optioned.
For film and television.
So, yes. Lowly me, who had not even put my first book out yet, I had my comics out. But not my first novel. I was just like, why would you ask me anything? Like, why are you talking to me? So, again, it was very refreshing, and it's also something like a lot of the author community is actually very friendly and wants to talk about their stuff, but I think it can be very intimidating as well, because you feel like you don't have a right to talk to somebody, or especially if they're at a different place than you are, with what they're doing or with their books or writing process. So one reason I wanted to start doing these sessions was I want people to be able to come and talk about writing or editing or publishing, whether it's about their own stuff, whether it's about my stuff, whether it's about the guest star stuff. And in a place that you don't have to pay money to go do it, you don't have to travel to go do it. Like, you can be comfortable and feel like you can express yourself and ask these questions and not worry about, are they going to answer it or not? Because we'll do our best to do that, if we see the questions. So thank you so much for being here. And
thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here too. I'm so excited about this. Like, I'm just like, just giddy about it. So Lorena has been published since 2011.
Yes.
And you currently have how many books in your series?
There are 7 right now in the Unaltered series. And I have an additional series that has the first book out of a different genre.
Is the Unaltered series complete at 7?
No, there'll be one more book.
Oh, one more. So almost done.
Almost done, yep.
How's it feeling getting to the final?
Well,
maybe I shouldn't have asked that question. Nobody else asked that. I did, but now I feel like, let's just stick to the script.
When so many of the books are cliffhangers, and now you got to write the one that wraps everything up with a pretty bow, that's sometimes hard to do. I'm excited to wrap it all up, but at the same time, there's so many stories that could go off on their own. I could have additional stories. There's so much.
Are you planning to maybe do that, or is it more just you could if you want to?
Actually, I do have plans.
You heard it here first.
Down the road for something that would take place in the future. I don't want to say a whole lot more than that, but the same universe, same characters. Yeah.
Okay. I have read all her books. I have also edited quite a few of them, so I'm not opposed to there being more outside of this. I do think you have some exceptional characters that could have very cool stories.
Thanks.
So I would support it.
All right.
Okay, let's get to the actual, why we're here. Because I could just make this an interview of you, and I would love to do that. Maybe another time we'll just have it its own stream where I can talk to you about stuff. But we're here to answer your writing and editing and publishing questions. All right. So the first question is... Ooh, here's a good one. Okay, if I can self-edit, like using a self-editing program, why do I need an editor?
You want me to take that one?
I would love for you to take that one. I have my own thoughts about that, but I'd love to hear what you say first.
Well, when you're writing, using Word or whatever word processor you're using, it'll underline, it'll spell check for you. And it'll even find the wrong words, there, and there. And that's great, but it's not perfect. And you can reread it over and over and over again, and you can reread right over some errors, and you're blind to them because you're too close to the project. So one of my first biggest mistakes was to talk about the forest and fir trees. And this is very embarrassing to say because I grew up in Idaho where we have a lot of fir trees, and I spelled that F-U-R.
Oh, like furry?
Fir trees. And I know better. I know better. No spell check picked that up.
Because F-U-R is correct.
F-U-R is correct. Yeah. And but a reviewer did, and that review is immortalized on Amazon. Yeah. That I did fir trees. So, having an editor go through things, who has an eye for that, for those things. That they're looking at your script the first time. You have seen it over and over and over again, and things are just, you're blind to it.
But there are like actual kind of, like Grammarly, like there's some actual and other like self-editing programs where they break it down like an editor would. Do you think that is sufficient enough, or why or why not?
Oh, I think an editor brings something to it that Grammarly would not. The human mind, the human interest in the story, to be able to look at the story and say, hey, there's a flaw. This doesn't match what you said earlier. I don't think Grammarly's going to pick that kind of thing up. It's going to look at sentence structure, but not, well, earlier you said that this particular power was associated with that stone, and now you're saying, even though the sentence is correct and Grammarly passed it, but you're saying the wrong thing. You're not matching what was in the story earlier. That's an editor's job.
Okay. I have had, this is kind of a side note just for me, because I have had other writers say that they don't want to pay the money for an editor, and because it can be expensive, or it can take a long time to save the money, and sometimes people then tend to want to put their book out because they just want it to be finished.
I did that back in 2011.
Yeah.
Honestly, I put my books online because I couldn't get an agent. I tried to query agents. My query letter was probably horrible, thinking back on it. But I just needed a really good feeling of, are my books readable? My family and friends, of course they're going to say yes. But I knew I need someone else that doesn't know me to look this over. So I put them onto Amazon. That was in 2011.
So you published them.
I
instead of like
them.
Finding a writing group or finding you just straight up published.
Okay. I was in Southeast Idaho, and there really aren't very many of those.
Okay.
I would have had to travel an hour just to attend class. So, and I had researched one, and everyone was in their 60s, and I just felt like, and they're writing memoirs and I'm writing fantasy, So I didn't feel like that would be a good fit, but I just wanted to know if my stories were interesting enough to work harder on my writing. I knew that the book wasn't all the way good, like as far as sentence structure and all of that. But I just needed to know, should I invest any more time in this project? Because I really liked writing, but am I any good? Should I waste any more time? Put it out there, and that was a mistake, because all of the bad reviews that I ended up getting, none of them were horrible. They weren't terrible reviews, but they're still there.
Because of the lack of editing.
Lack of editing.
Okay.
Yeah. I hadn't even had a professional proofread it, But that was also before a lot of these places online were available. So now you can go on and go to Fiverr, and you can, find someone that'll proofread. But I just thought, right now I need to know if I should keep writing or not. Should I hang it up or not? And unfortunately, or fortunately, A Diamond in My Pocket took off just a few weeks after putting it on Amazon. So now here's my...
Like sale-wise?
Like download-wise and sale-wise, because
Okay.
the Amazon price matched it to $0, because it was listed on Barnes & Noble as $0, the cost. And it got picked up by all these lists, and I don't even remember. I had like 30,000 downloads in just a couple days. And then I knew too, I'm thinking, oh no, they're reading stuff that's not edited, and
oh my goodness.
I can't pull it. Why would I pull? And so that happens. So that's another reason to edit. But then I knew the price was going to go to 99 cents, because it was now 99 cents on Barnes & Barnes and Noble. And then I realized these people are going to be paying money for my unedited book, and that's going to be bad, you know. So once it did flip to 99 cents, there were still plenty of people getting it, and I had 1,000 downloads or purchases in 25 hours, and that put the book clear up on these charts, the movers and shakers. I have snapshots, screenshots of my book right next to Hunger Games and, you know, all of the big names, Harry Potter even, and I'm like, wow.
So even with this, you know, surge, you still decided at some point to get an editor.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I knew my books needed an edit.
Okay.
What I gained from that, fortunately, that's the fortunately part, is that most of the reviews that came in liked the story. They liked my storytelling. The technical reviews that were talking about fur versus fur, or my point of view, which character, you know, what is the story, what point of view are we talking, and the tense, is it present tense, is it past tense? There weren't very many of those. So the people that got it and read it and then reviewed it were there for the story. And that gave me the boost I needed to feel like this is a good thing to invest in then. And so, yeah, I continued to write while I hunted for an editor.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, I mean, it may sound a little biased because I am an editor, but I have one also for my books. Like, I don't self-edit my own stuff. I think, just like you said, you can always miss things. Sometimes you're just too close and you can't see it fresh, full picture, because you've written all the chunks as pieces.
Yeah.
And so you need somebody to see it as a whole. And you can't ever do that again once you've written it without, you know, like a memory wipe. Or, you know, my memory sometimes. But as some of you may know. So I always recommend it. I know that it can cost money. I know that it can be time consuming too, because it kind of puts your book on hold while someone's editing it. But I can almost guarantee that I've literally had bad reviews that gave me 5 stars because they were like, it's such a well-written book, even though I didn't like it, that I can't, like, it's one of my favorite 5-star reviews. Because usually it's the opposite, where they're like, well, it was a really good book, but I didn't like it, so 1 star. You know, like this, I was just blown away, but I knew I had put out the best version of this book that I could. So even if you don't like it, it just means you don't like it. And it's not that the writing was bad. It's not that the editing wasn't there. It can cost money, and for a lot of people, especially if writing is more of a hobby, that's very difficult. But, you know, both Lorena and I have had other jobs here and there, depending on how sales were, to make sure that we can get enough money to get the book as good as possible. Mm-hmm. And I always say, you know, I don't know what's going to come out of me, whether it's what I'm saying or what I'm writing, and it's always nice to have somebody double check so that they can let me know later, like, guess what, you said that wrong. It's like, oh, now I know.
And just one note, let's say you're an author and you're a writer and you want to publish, and you have a relative that is an editor. I would not have them be your editor. You need someone who is not afraid to tell you like it is.
Unless they are not afraid. My mom to tell you how it. The first book I wrote, Illusion, she read it and she goes, "It's good, but it's not great." No lie, my own mother.
Okay.
And I put that as a quote in the beginning of, like, dedicated to my mom, because I was like, felt like the most soul crushing quote to ever have from your own, like, flesh and blood. But
okay, I don't think many people have those kinds of relatives.
No, they don't.
Are,
and
honest and
the reason. But then she said, like, let's make it great. Like, she was encouraging and supportive in the sense of, like, it's good, but, like, I know you have this in you to, like, elevate it.
Yeah.
And we worked our butts off on it, and I had other editors who helped me through it and all that kind of stuff, and she was able to finally say it's great. So, like, that level of, like, if I can get her to say it, because she'll tell me
Yeah.
if it's not.
Yeah.
But I think you also mean like the relatives or friends or they don't want to hurt your
to
feelings.
try to save money. You
Yeah.
know, hey, would you read through my book and let me know what you think? They're gonna tell you what you want to hear because that's just how it goes.
Or
So-
very kind of glossy things.
Yeah.
Like, well, it was
Yeah.
a little, this was a little,
If
but
that-
otherwise it was really good.
If
It's
they
like,
if they come back with the points of your book that they really liked, you know, oh, and I really liked the ending. Oh, and I really like this, and then you're like, what did you not really like? You know, what could I fix or improve or, you know, something
I
like that.
now, whenever somebody I know reads one of my books, I always tell them, I will not ask you what you thought. If you want to tell me,
I say that too.
you can tell me because
I
then
don't
there's no
even
pressure.
ask. I
Yeah.
don't even ask if they read it.
No.
If I give
Nope.
them a book or
It's-
they tell me they downloaded, I don't ask.
It's into the void.
Mm-hmm.
That way I know if they come tell me, they actually really liked it.
Yeah.
Because it's not a, oh, I feel pressured.
They
'Cause
don't have to come up
say
with anything. They don't have to try to
Yeah.
worry if I'm going to be offended.
I like that we agree on that.
Yeah.
Okay, going on to question number 2. How long does it take to write a book?
You go first.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Here is the answer. It takes as long as it takes until you're done. That is a terrible answer for people who want a number, but it's actually true. My first book took close to 7 years before it was done. From the first time I started writing on it, it went through a lot of revisions, a lot of changes. It's not quite the same book as it was when I first started. But like, as I also got more comfortable with the writing process, with how to write, with storytelling, that once you learn, especially from editors, what to focus on and what not to focus on, you start putting that in automatically so you don't have to edit it later. Saves a lot of time. So I would say now, if I'm just sitting and writing a book from like start to publish versus from start to finish, I can write one in 3 to 4 months and be published 6 to 7, depending on what I want to do for it as far as promotion and stuff. But well less than a year if that's what my focus is. So going from the 7 years to less than a year is a very huge difference, but it just really depends on your comfort level with writing and what you already know going into it, because I think if you have more knowledge, it becomes easier to write the book. I do want to say I think a lot of people get stuck in editing though.
Mm-hmm.
And when is it done? And that is what drags on, to be honest, I think more than the writing the book itself.
Especially if you're a perfectionist and then you find yourself tweaking the same sentence every time you come through. You fix this exact same sentence again, like, well, let's try it this way, let's try it that way. And that's where the editor comes in. Would you make that work? And then I'm not going to touch it.
Yeah. So that's why even saying like it's done when it's done can be helpful in the sense of like what Lorena said, that sometimes it's done when it before, like, and you still keep working on it. That doesn't mean it's not finished.
Yeah.
But learning where that moment is, and in my last Q&A actually that I did, that was one of the questions, was how do I know when my book is like done, like I don't have to edit on it anymore. So if you watch that one from last month, you can see I talk about that, because I think that a lot of writers really struggle with, how long do I keep editing? Like you just said, like if I can just keep changing this one sentence, when is it the right one? When is it the correct, so that it's finished?
My turn?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So I worked on 2 other books before I started the Unaltered series, and those were just reoccurring dreams that I'd had long ago, and I thought, I'm going to just try to write that down. So the first book took probably a year of writing it down, rewriting it. But then I realized, oh, there's a prequel to this, an entire story of the parents of the people in the first book that I wrote. And so that book I knew the story in my head, and I was able to write that in about 4 months and start handing it out to my friends and family to get their opinions, because, you know, who else do I give it to? So 4 months seems to be about the fastest I can write a book.
Except when you destroy your back. Don't do that.
Yeah,
Don't do that one.
A diamond in my pocket was was a dream.
You gotta tell the good and the bad if you're gonna give
True.
ballpark figures
That's
of how long
true.
something took.
Yeah, well, I mean, I typed 50,000 words in 4 days. They weren't all good words, and not all of them stayed in the book. But I typed down this idea that was a full-on dream, beginning, middle, and end dream, and I woke up thinking, oh, I gotta write that down.
This is a diamond in my pocket.
Diamond in my pocket, yeah. So I sat kind of crooked in my chair typing, and I ruptured a disc in my back. So I still deal with that.
And you were laid out for several weeks?
Several months.
Oh, months.
Yeah,
Okay.
I had to get an injection.
Where instead you
and
could have
all
just
this.
been writing that whole time and not hurting your back.
Yeah,
Not that you knew. I mean, this
I
isn't...
couldn't sit. I couldn't stand for
so
long.
awful.
You know, anyone that has had a back problem, you understand. It's terrible. So, you know, but that was in 2009. And remember, I didn't put a diamond in my pocket out online till 2011. So there was 2 years in between starting it and getting it out there. It doesn't mean I worked on it all the time during that stretch of time, but that's how it started. But then when it went big and emails started coming in for, hey, that was a great book. When does the book 2 come out? I hadn't really planned on writing a second book.
Now, is that because your first books came to you as dreams and you didn't have that for book 2 of the Unaltered series?
No. My first 2 books, they're more romantic suspense. And I was sending those out, query letters, out to agents. And I did have one agent that responded saying, you need to make a name for yourself before anyone will take you into this genre, because there's too many big names that already own that genre. So I just knew this was when Twilight was really big, and I just knew I needed to write a young adult fantasy, which I don't do fantasy. Yeah, I don't, definitely I'm not going to do vampires. I was just like, no. But putting that into my mind and thinking about it over and over, then my brain came up with this story of a diamond in my pocket. And then I start getting these emails after it came out, when's book 2 coming out? So then I had to really stop and think. I mean, I was just trying to make a name for myself and that happened pretty easily, or kind of by accident. But then I brainstormed and workshopped with my husband and my son, and we got more of a plot of 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4 would be this arc story, and that was going to be it. And so I wrote book 2 in about 4 months. Book 2, and released it, and without an edit, of course. But it was in better shape than book 1. But it took a whole nother year to get book 3 and 4. Book 3 and 4 were the book 3 released in April and book 4 released in December of 2013.
Okay.
And so when I'm in the zone, I can write pretty fast.
Is that most of your books then come that right? You write them that fast?
No.
Oh, because it seems like up until
Those
this
were
point,
good.
you're like 4 months or less.
Yeah, 4 months is how fast I can write a book.
Okay.
But I've had a lot of things that happened after book 4 that have just slowed down my writing process. Just outside influences and outside, life that has slowed down my writing. So now when I get in the zone, I have to just take advantage of it and jump in there and write everything down that's in my head, or even just make notes so I can come back to it later.
I think that's a really good thing to remember, that just because you can write something in this shorter amount of time doesn't mean that the circumstances are always great for that to happen every time.
That's right.
So
I wish it was, but
yeah.
it's not always like that. So I have a lot of stories in my head, and I'd love to be able to type them out. But when you don't have the time, you don't have the time.
Yeah. But I think it's a good thing to remember to let yourself know, hey, it's okay that this took 7 months or 10 months or a year or whatever instead of my fastest, because you're still writing, which is always something.
I have learned one thing a little off topic, that if you're going to write a trilogy, and you know what you're going to write is a trilogy, for me, next time I do that, I'm going to write all 3 books and be almost all the way done with the 3rd book before I release book 1.
Okay.
Because then book 2 can release soon after, a few months down the road, and book 3 will be ready by that time.
Is that also so you don't have to pressure yourself to get the writing done as fast?
Yes.
So you can take whatever time it takes, whether it's shorter or longer, and then okay, that makes sense.
To me, that is how I'll release trilogies in the future, is that they'll be pretty much done. I mean, we live in a world where we sit down and binge watch a movie or series on TV. People binge read as well. And I just did a promotion for A Diamond in My Pocket, and I'll see people, they'll go and buy 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, just like that, because they went through the first one and they're like, okay. And I don't know how fast they read them, because I don't, unless they leave a review.
But this way they have it. When they're done with one, they already can go to the next.
They're going to binge read, okay. They're going to just keep going. I would have binged read through Harry Potter if I could have, but, we had to wait for those books. But I was ready to keep reading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Question number 3. This is a Lorena question. It has nothing to do with me.
Okay.
So whatever, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. That's good. It means that somebody knows she was going to be here. I'm so happy. Okay. So you actually just talked about there's going to be 8 books. So this question is, why are you ending the Unaltered series with 8 books instead of 10? Why is that a question?
Well, that after book 4 finished up, that's when I got my editor. So I had written those 4 books of the Unaltered series, and then I found my professional editor. And so she worked on those 4 books, and she said, this story could be so much bigger. There's more to this. You've just introduced these characters. You need to write more. Come up with an adventure for them that they need to do. So again, we did. And I like to brainstorm with people, and once I get the idea, then it morphs in my head and can become something completely different. But it's good to brainstorm and have ideas going, and then it gets my own creativity going. And when I take ideas like from my son and I don't use them the way he wants them, he gets frustrated, and I understand. But I'm the one writing the book, and I have to make it make sense in the universe that I've created. So we had put together 5 through 10, 5 more books.
Oh, okay. That's where the number 10 comes from.
We were aiming for a 10-book series, and my editor at that time was then also putting together a proposal, a pitch for producers for movie and television, and we were pitching a 10-book series. So I had to write out the synopsis of all the books, and so for several years this has been talked about as a 10-book series. But now, as a lot of years have gone by, the option contract was good for 5 years, but it expired during COVID, and when all movies went halt. and it wasn't picked up again after that. Then I started to really think, okay, where am I in this series? What needs to happen? And is there enough content to stretch it out for 3 more books? Because I just finished book 7, 8, 9, and 10 still, and I know what's going to happen, and I know how it all ends. But part of me thought so much of what comes next is in a different genre. So people that are reading my books have been reading in the here and the now, in the in our real world, and now at the end of 7, we start into post-apocalyptic type.
Okay.
It's a different genre. So there's enough time after a big event happens to wrap up a lot of these storylines, to complete the journey of these characters in one book. And it'll be a big, it'll be a long book, but it will stay interesting to my readers and be fulfilling, and then I hope and then it helps put a stopping point for the Unaltered series to this point at the end of book 8, and leaves open to start a new series, that people would not need to read the first 8 if they didn't want to, if they didn't even know about them. They could start with book 1 of the next series and jump right in there, and they could go back and read what came before. But it's hard to have a book series that's in several genres, because how do you market that? How do you promote a book series that starts here and then evolves into this one and then over to that one? And so there's a lot going on in these books, and I realized that ending at 8 is that's the better thing for this series right now. And then moving forward would be a different genre. It's futuristic in some ways. It's not the world we live in anymore. So that's my idea. That's why I'm going to end with 8.
Was it difficult once you figured that out to pull the trigger on that decision, or once you figured it out you were like, this is the way it's going to be?
I had to first map it out. I had to map it out exactly to make sure I could get all of those loose ends pulled together. And I needed to also alter what I already had in those synopsises for those 3 books. I had to change a little bit of some of the things, events. But yeah, once I got it mapped out and I could get in my mind where this is going and how it's going to get there, then it's like, yep, books.
I have a strange hypothetical follow-up question.
Okay.
So if the option for the movie, which was under the terms of 10 books, would have still continued,
then I would have had
you
to...
would have kept going.
I would have kept
10.
going, yeah. I would have done 10. And I would have needed to fill in more, more detail, more in depth, or start new threads, But it's hard to start a new thread when you're in book 7 of 10. It's not too late by any means, but...
So do you feel like for your series, this is actually a better fit, the 8 books, than stretching to 10?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Because I think the more books you have, you're more likely to lose readers if they don't like the way you stretch the story. And I'm sure that happens. I mean, I didn't absolutely love all of the Harry Potter books or all of the chapters. Some just felt exhausting. But not many. I mean, I love J.K. Rowling's books, don't get me wrong. But sometimes, you just want more action, Oh, come on, I want more action. So I don't like writing that way, and I feel like if I was to try to do the 10 books, then I would end up having slower moving plots. And I don't My plots have been really fast for the most part, and that's what I like to read, and that's what I like to write. So yeah, stopping with 8 versus 10 is actually a good thing.
I'd say for the readers, definitely.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it means, it sounds like it serves your series better.
I think so.
Yeah, is truer to the story than just trying to filler, like.
Well, it is fun when you have a dedicated fan base that really they like your writing style and they like the characters. And there will be some that are not happy that it ends at 8. They'll want more of it, but
You might be writing more anyway, so.
Maybe so. But I appreciate all my fans. Just amazing to have produced something that people really like, and that I don't want to let them down. But I feel like if I try to drag out the book just for 10 books, drag out the story, then I might be actually crossing that line into not the quality of book that I would like to write.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of examples out there of things that have been stretched or added or changed in movies as well, especially if they're adaptations, to have more movies or more books or more sales. And I definitely appreciate that you are okay with not doing that to serve the story. I think that's...
And the readers, I've provided a rapid paced storyline, and that's what the Unaltered series is. It's you start reading, and many people say, I just couldn't put it down.
Yeah.
I read late into the night. I love hearing that, but then get your sleep. You need your sleep.
Okay, so we actually got a question in chat, which I love, because a lot of these come from outside of the live chat, but I always want to encourage that. So I'm going to go off of my group, and we'll get to that another time. So Raisin Rove asks, how do you determine who's a good editor? You said you had someone different for your first editor. Ooh. Or did they just stop being your editor? I guess, was there a difference, and then why did you have a different one later?
Well, my first editor...
Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
I'm talking to my phone instead of...
Yeah.
Sorry about that. That's what I'm looking at, by the way.
Read that question.
Read okay.
My first editor I found when I joined a book group. Book club, not a club.
Like a
writers group?
Okay.
A writing group, yes. And I joined that writing group to find an editor. And I didn't know what I would find. I just thought maybe I could network with other writers and get some ideas. Well, the leader of the writers group was a professional editor, and so I presented her with my manuscript after a couple of visits, after going to her class a couple of times and seeing what she does, her level of expertise, and I thought, wow, okay, this is good. Let me see if she has time to take on my books. And so she was particular on how many she could take on at any one time. There's only so many hours in the day, but she did take on my books, and I was very happy about that. And so she edited books 1 through 5, and the kicking out book 6 took so long, and that there was a lot in my life that I just couldn't get book 6 done, and couldn't get it all the way there, and she was moving in different directions with her life as well. Right about that time, I met Krista, and she's an editor, but there was financial aspect to it as well, of paying the editor, and Krista being a professional editor, but she had a lower cost. I could get this book out there, because by the time I was to the point that I needed to make a decision, do I have my first editor do this book or do I switch over to Krista? And would Krista be able to continue with the story pacing and the type of storytelling? When I reached that point, then it was,
because it had already been established in those first 5 books.
yes.
Okay.
We have to stay with the same way the story is being told. We can't make changes. So if you were going to try to switch everything all up, then that just wouldn't work. I needed to know that would be the case. But the point is, I had already finished the book, and it had been finished for several months, but I didn't have the money to pay the other editor, and so I made the decision to move over to Krista. Happy I did.
Yay, I'm glad for that.
Yeah.
I do want to put in a little personal note here that Lorena encouraged me very quickly to raise my prices. She told me that I was worth way more, because I was fairly new at the time, because when I met you, I'd been editing for like 2 or 3 years, since 2013. So I've got more under my belt now, but I didn't know what I was doing for pricing. I didn't know how much I was doing for people's books. I didn't know like what I was doing as an editor and how that was comparable. And she very quickly was like, hey, listen. So I took that as a compliment, but also it helped me further my career and really know the value of what a good editor is. And
well, I could see the quality of your work, and that you knew what you're doing, and you needed to be charging more. Not a whole lot more, but I definitely felt like you were undercutting yourself for what the quality that you could do, that you definitely could charge more.
So part of this question that was asked is, what do you find that makes a good editor a good editor? Because you've had more than one, but you also talked about you've had people edit. And
I think the first thing up was that my first editor was honest. Was constructive criticism, and so for her I gave 5 or 10 pages, and she gave them back to me with constructive criticism. What I had been looking for, I need to know how to make these books better, and so she showed me a way, like, okay, your tense is wrong and your point of view is not consistent. So if you were to pick one, it would sound like this. So she rewrote my sentences to show me what it would sound like, and to have it in just Callie's point of view, my lead character, because it wasn't initially. There was some places where it wasn't just her point of view, but that was impressive to me, and that was what I was looking for. Her price range, I was not familiar with what a good price for an editor would be, so she had quoted what other professional editors with her same schooling and everything would charge, and she was charging half of that. So I felt like that was a good deal for a professional editor.
So if a writer is looking for a good editor versus a not good one, what are things for them to look for or watch out for in the other?
I would they probably would request anyway, if you're shopping for an editor, supply them with 10 pages of your manuscript and have them work it over and see what you think. And because there's a relationship between you and your editor. And if you don't like their changes, and if they're trying to change your story, if they're trying to insert their voice into your characters, that's a no-go.
Okay.
You need to be able to tell your story, but you need them to help polish your words, and makes me think of that term, polishing a turd. The words have to be good in the first place, and then they need to be polished by the editor. The editor's not going to write your book. That's a ghostwriter. They write your book, but an editor doesn't do that. An editor takes what you've written and makes it flow and polishes it, and which is what I knew mine needed. So I needed to be able to get along with her, and I needed to like her style, and I did.
I think a lot of writers feel like either that they can't. What? Oh, it's just my cat.
Cat.
She's fine. She's fine.
Okay.
She just kept pointing at something, and I'm like, "What are you pointing?" It's back to my knee. I was like trying to find this line of sight.
It's Moxie.
Okay. It's Moxie. She's still in here. I think a lot of writers struggle with the same kind of concept as like finding a doctor or finding, somebody to work with. That there needs to be a dynamic of, yes, this person is the professional that's the level above to help you to elevate your stuff, but there also needs to be a sense of you mesh well.
Yeah.
Not just that they provide good feedback, but also that they can work with you in a way that works for you, and so that you can get the best out of whatever you're putting out there. Mm-hmm. I've definitely had editors that have done a lot of just, this is textbook, this is just what, you just need to change. And I felt like it didn't represent my voice, my style, my, whatever I was trying to portray.
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of times too, like if you really feel like whatever they're suggesting grates on you the wrong way, first of all, if multiple people are telling you, please relook at it. Please relook at
that is a very
why it's
good
grading
point.
you. Because if it's coming from multiple sources, then you might have to let it go. I hate to say it.
So I think as an author, you need to have thick skin, but you also need to defend your work. But you got to find a balance.
Yeah.
So if too many people are saying the same thing about something you've written, it's time to have your thick skin and look at it from a different set of eyes.
And either get rid of it because it doesn't work, or change it so it does. Because you can often change things, but maybe it's just not coming across the way you think it is. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think for me, the best editors that I've worked with are people that they weren't just doing the basic stuff. Like they wanted to get the most out of what I wrote and why I was writing it and how I was writing it, instead of just, here are the basic things to cover editing 101, you know?
Yeah.
Not that you don't need that at some point as well if you've never had that. I think the basics are important, but there comes a level of, you want the next step. And not everybody wants that. Like, I know a lot of writers I've met who don't want to do that work, who don't want to push that hard. Mm-hmm. That is definitely their choice, but I would probably not read their books, to be honest.
Now, something interesting to say concerning you as my editor. You found me because you read the book. Mm-hmm. And I...
Sorry.
And so you knew the story, you knew the characters. So it was risky to allow you to edit because you may have been too... influential in the story, like, well, I think maybe I should go this way or that way, which you were not, which was excellent. But that was a risky undertaking, because if the editor is too close to the story, they're going to miss things just like I miss it when I go through my reread and another reread, and I miss the same problems. So editors need to be objective, and but also one of the best things is for Krista, she's able to tell me when that doesn't sound like something Callie would say. When I've typed out a sentence and maybe something in my own world is going a certain way, and then Callie says something and she points it out. That doesn't sound like something Callie would say. It's like, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
Especially as like the queen of dialogue. She writes a lot of really good dialogue. It stands out then because you're good at it. Like, it's like, this isn't right. This isn't how she would sound. And there's usually something else influencing it.
If it pulls you out of the story, because it's so abrasive. That's not what Callie would say.
Yeah.
Then it's got to be changed. It's got to be reworded, you know, for Callie's voice.
Yeah.
So that was good. I lucked out in that sense that you were able to still be professional and edit my books without feeling like the direction that my plot line was going, it may not have been what you thought it should be, but you still honored my voice and my storyline.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to put this graphic up once more real quick because I want people to check out your stuff if they found themselves interested. This has been phenomenal. The time went really fast.
Yeah, it really did.
We got through way less questions than I thought we would, which is not necessarily a bad thing because I think we had good answers and we were able to really get into some of the nitty-gritty stuff.
I did too.
So thank you all for coming, and thank you for your questions, and please keep them coming. And if you are on my YouTube channel, don't be shy about writing in the comments about any of the questions you'd like to see in the future. And thank you again. I'm going to stop the recording, but I will stay with stream for just a few minutes to wrap things up and give some announcements. So thank you again, and thank you, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.